This week on Head to Head, the sequel trilogy. Whose story is it?
You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vancil.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So last week, I actually got the chance. You know how I'm always scanning through YouTube and everything. Because, of course, I'm eagerly awaiting. We are now 1 week away from Star Wars Celebration. You know, like I said, we're still planning on maybe doing a Google Hangouts where we actually watch the thing in real time. And we're going to, you know, of course, I'm saying all this now, right? But when the time actually comes, probably none of this stuff's going to happen. But we're really going to try. We're going to try for you guys to do something special. But at the very least, next week's podcast will be pretty much us covering the various panels of Star Wars Celebration. We're going to watch, you know, the live stream, probably like you guys. And then we're going to take the segments and basically break it up. And we'll talk about each of the panels. So it's still going to be a special show. And we're probably going to have to cover it, I think, on 2 shows maybe.
Yeah, probably.
But while I was, you know, looking up information, all that, of course, I'm always scanning YouTube for something new to watch. And I ran across the Smallville cast reunion at Comic-Con. Man, and you know how big fans of Smallville you and I are.
Yep.
So naturally, you know, when I saw that they actually reunited, not everybody, but most of the main people, you know, they had Tom Welling there, they had Michael Rosenbaum, they had Laura Vandervoort. They had, I keep forgetting her name, but the one that played Black Canary.
Oh, yeah.
They had Jonathan Glover, you know, who was Lionel Luthor.
Yep.
So, you know, it was a pretty cool cast. And I mean, it was...
Were the parents on there, like, of Martha Kent?
No.
Oh, okay.
Nope. And Kristen Crook wasn't on there, although they did mention that she's going to start doing the convention circuit.
Okay.
You know, pretty soon. Because she knows that, you know, fans would like to talk to her. And of course, Allison Mack wasn't there for obvious reasons. So the thing that was funny, though, was I had no idea how entertaining. I'm going to have to leave a link to this in the comments, even though it's not really Star Wars related, but still, it is so funny. And I mean, Rosenbaum was just, you know, everybody knew that he's kind of just like a wild, shoot from the hip, kind of funny comedian, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he did not disappoint. I mean, it was so funny. I was just watching this, just like cracking up. I was in tears sometimes because it was just so funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can only imagine just like what the, you know, watching that type of panel on Comic-Con. At Comic-Con, you can only imagine what the panel's going to be like for Celebration. Just who's going to bring out like the comedic aspects of things.
Well, and you know, Mark Hamill is always hilarious to watch at these things because at the end of the day, he's almost as big of a fan, maybe even bigger than half of us.
Right.
So, you know, he's a lot of fun to watch. Actually, I remember when you and I watched the stream of, I think it was the last Celebration. It wasn't the London one. It was the...
No, the one for Force Awakens, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I remember they had Ian McDiarmid on it. And that was so interesting. Like, it was way beyond even anything that I thought it would be. And he was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he was also, like, really giving. You know, because the fans would say, oh, say this line, and oh, say that, and oh, say this like them. And he would do it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very giving. Yeah.
You know, yeah. And he was just a really cool, you know, down-to-earth, very nice emperor. I would vote for him.
Yeah, it's better than what we got now.
Yeah, hear that. Which means we should probably go get something to drink.
Oh, that was a great segue.
Sorry, yeah, I know. You know, I just love it when they're unplanned. That's so cool. So, yeah, let's go to the Cantina, everybody. Let's drown our sorrows together.
Right.
What do we got first?
All right, so... We're talking Old Republic. So Benioff and Weiss, new movies to start in the fall. Mm-hmm. And it's set in the Old Republic era. How do you feel about it?
That's what they've been saying. And honestly, I mean, I don't know. This is what... I don't remember if you were, you know, which side of the whole fence that you were on.
To.
Yeah. But I'd been saying forever that, you know, once they gave these guys the opportunity to do a Star Wars trilogy or Star Wars movie or whatever, it's like, well,
Duh.
Yeah, they're the Game of Thrones guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
it's probably going to be, I mean, see, in my opinion, you don't even approach those guys unless you're trying to do an Old Republic movie.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you would do it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think these guys have definitely the talent with the success of Game of Thrones, and that's basically kind of how the era was from what we all read about the Old Republic. It's just that it's kind of that old rustic kind of vibe, and I would love to see what a Star Wars galaxy would look like back then. When we say a galaxy far, far away, that's one thing, but then now you're saying like back in time, that's a whole nother avenue that you can take this whole franchise to. And there's loads of stuff. I mean, of course, we probably could see Yoda in that era because, of course, he's old enough to be in the Old Republic.
Depending on when they have it set.
Yeah, depending on when they set it.
It depends because and here's the thing, they pretty much, I think, said as much, but I don't think that this is going to be like a retelling of the Old Republic game, like the Knights of the Old Republic and all that, even though all that would be so cool with HK-47 and Darth Revan and all that stuff. I mean,
yes,
it would be wonderful. But of course, that took place, I don't know, something like 3,000 to 10,000 years before A New Hope. So Yoda wasn't even thought of at that point. But I mean, again, and this is coming from like, I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones, hilariously. But of course, a lot of my friends are, really avid watchers of it. And I'm somewhat aware of the source material. And so, yeah, this is like the perfect playground for those guys to play in, this nice Old Republic sandbox. But here's the thing. What would you, since we pretty much know that, look, there's no way these guys are going to remake the Knights of the Old Republic video games. What do you want to see? How do you want them to approach this?
I would love to approach it where a lot of historical stuff. Like, I think that would be cool, especially if they did it in a series, because then you can really delve into, the beginnings of the Jedi, or at least if you're not going to show like the very birth of it, you can talk about, okay, it may have taken like 500 years ago, there were two clans or whatever that started off, or whatever, how you want to forge it. But, just really give us the history and the background about it. I would love to delve into like the Force itself and how it came to be. Like, how did people first respond to it? Because that's just something, if, just like one day one of us was able to just move stuff with our minds and, have all these amazing abilities.
Hold on a second, check this out. I was gonna wait till after the podcast to show you this, but
yeah, I think if we saw something like that, because I think that would be really interesting, just to see how the world kind of started to embrace that type of thing, because I'm sure like everybody was just like, okay, what the heck are these guys sorcerers? Like, how are these people able to do this stuff? And then you start trying to develop the whole separation between the Sith and the Jedi, and then kind of just get into those dealings. So I would really love to see that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, and I think you almost, like, first of all, I think one thing that almost must happen if you're going to tie all this stuff together is you got to see Octo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's supposed to be, yeah, right. You have to see those two places. And something has to happen along the lines of, I don't know if I necessarily want to see, like, the whole birth of it. I wouldn't mind seeing, like, okay, the Jedi have been going on for a while. They obviously have this power. They're figuring out what they want to do with it. And then maybe you have a couple of guys that disagree, and they go to Mordor or whatever, the Sith homeworld, and then they start developing separately, and then you start seeing these two different factions using the Force in two very different ways. And then eventually they would battle. The other thing that I would hope, if this is going to be a trilogy, and I think it is that maybe not in the first one, maybe not even in the second one, at least until later, but you got to put Darth Bane in it.
Yeah.
You got to have him come in it, and you got to see what leads up to the whole rule of two.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like, I would love to see the formation of even like lightsabers, man. Like, just.
Well, yeah, right.
Like,
them building it and stuff. But I mean, I don't necessarily know if I need like the whole true, like, almost like exposition.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, here's this whole history thing. Now, you could do a lot of that in one of those...
like a Netflix series or something like that.
Well, or either that, or even if you want to do it in the beginning of the movie. But, you have like the old wizard sounding in a land of,
right, yeah.
whatever. Almost kind of a Lord of the Rings kind of thing where they'll put, maybe some text and have a little bit of narration, or an opening crawl if you want to do that. That's going to be the other thing that interests me too.
Yeah, if they're going to do like an opening crawl thing.
Yeah, because you no longer will have the episodic series.
Mm-hmm.
At least not for a while.
Oh, what if that is the new episodic series?
Yeah.
That would be cool.
That would be different. It'd be like the prequel.
Yeah.
The prequel trilogy. You could do that, or I don't know, there's just really there's a lot of different things that you can do, because now it's going to be, once again, we're in uncharted territory. And the other thing that's interesting to me too, which sort of ties in, is that, Disney just recently truly bought Fox.
Mm-hmm.
So now they truly have, there's the first thing that everybody says, are we ever going to get the original trilogy in its original theatrical form? Is that ever going to be released? But the other thing that people are wondering, are we going to get the fanfare back?
Mm-hmm.
The whole 20th Century Fox, thing. Yeah, exactly. Because now that Disney owns it, it's like it's all one property now. So, and how is that going to affect, this movie and subsequent movies going forward? And like you said, is it going to be the new episodic trilogy? What about Rian Johnson's trilogy?
Yeah.
It's really a very interesting time. While we have episode 9, we're still rooted in phase 1, if you will, of this whole thing.
And you brought up something that kind of made me think a little bit. I'm wondering if we're going to find out what Rian Johnson's cooking up at Celebration.
I don't think so, only because they need to promote episode 9 quite heavily.
True.
They got The Mandalorian.
Yep.
They got the Cassian Andor series they could announce if they want.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
See, right now it's been somewhat quiet, but we're going to get just blasted with Star Wars stuff in a week.
That's true.
Because you got all these different things, and then they're announcing the Fallen Order video game. We're going to get the trailer for that. And we're going to get, there's just so much
animated
stuff.
Series, yeah.
Yeah, that they got to do, and that they need to promote. And then, of course, you have the Clone Wars returning.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the whole,
So you got a lot of stuff. They have a lot of things they got to cover. I don't think... if they were going to do anything outside of the norm, I would like to see the ultimate fate of this Obi-Wan thing. Because remember, there was discussion that it might actually be a limited series instead of a movie. So, I'd like to know at least... I don't even need much information. Just like, oh, yeah, you know what? We're thinking of doing this Obi-Wan thing. It's going to be a series or a film strip or something. I don't know. Like the old style. Remember with the cassettes and you'd hear the beep and the teacher would advance it. It's like anything like that. I will say the comics have been heating up a little bit, though. It's funny. I got the second issue of... the new Dark... Well, see, this is what happens. When I start bringing up stuff that isn't in our show notes, that's when I get in trouble. It's that one where Darth Vader was on the horse, like, jousting.
Oh, yeah.
It's Dark something. I don't know. I can look it up, I guess. But the thing is, I got the second issue of that. I still haven't read the first one. So I'm still catching up on that, and I still need to catch up on Thrawn Alliances and, a couple other things. But there's so many cool books that are coming up, too. You got Master and Apprentice. You had the book out now, the Queen Amidala one.
Mm-hmm.
You have, and what I'll do is we'll actually leave Amazon affiliate links to a lot of these products in the show notes. And it would be really great if you guys, you should really check these things out anyway, because this is like some really great Star Wars stuff coming out. And I'm sure they're going to announce even more at Celebration. But by clicking on our affiliate link, you actually help support us for a product that you're going to buy anyway. So we would really appreciate the help. But anyway, yeah, there's just like so many good things that are coming out.
Yeah.
And that's why I really don't think that we're going to get any announcement about the Rian Johnson trilogy other than that he's working on it.
Yeah, because I would just love to, I would wonder, which one would you be more excited for? Like another Rian Johnson trilogy? Well, not that he had one to begin with.
Like but, another one.
But a Rian Johnson trilogy or an Old Republic one with Benioff and Weiss.
Well, I mean, I will say that there's the only unfair thing about that question as it stands now is we don't know what the Rian Johnson thing is.
Right.
Because normally I would say the Old Republic, right? Because you know how much I love that Knights of the Old Republic game, which, by the way, you guys can get on your phones. Like, literally, the PC version that came out in, like, 2001 or whatever, it's on your phone.
Yep.
It might even be, like, free or for, like, a small price. But it's literally the same game that you played you can get, which I would recommend. And if you do play that game, then you'll be all about the Old Republic. But that said, what if Rian Johnson comes out and says, yeah, I'm going to do some whole thing about the unknown regions and, what's there? Well, then I don't know. Then I might...
Yeah.
Because, both of those different, I don't want to really say eras.
Territories.
Yeah. Or both of those storylines. Let's say it like that. Both of those storylines appeals to me, especially me who, I've been reading the expanded universe since the Timothy Zahn Heir to the Empire back in 91. So, these are things that I've always, like, hey, if Rian Johnson suddenly came up and said, yeah, I'm going to basically do a whole thing on the Yuuzhan Vong. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, sweet. Like I've said before about that series, it dragged on a little too long. I mean, 21 books or something insane like that is a bit excessive. But if you took that story and condensed it down, it would be really compelling. The only problem is that you would then have to get some of the original trilogy guys back. Mm-hmm. Or they would have to modify it. But, the point is, though, they brought up something that was really cool like that. Yeah, it would actually be a difficult decision for me.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, what about you guys? What do you guys think about the Benioff and Weiss movie hitting in the Old Republic? And actually, I have to give a shout out, once again, it was our good friend Patrick McIntosh. He's the one that actually turned me on to this news on our Facebook page. He basically wrote in and was like, hey, what do you think of this, the Benioff and Weiss Old Republic thing? And I'm like, what? Really? He's like, yeah, did you hear it was said? I'm like, no, I didn't actually hear that yet. And then I went online and sure enough, there's all this stuff. So thank you guys for, keeping us in the loop and giving us some things to talk about. So what do we got next?
All right. So news came out that the shareholders over at Disney got a chance to see some of the sizzle reel for episode 9, and they've also
they did. Next, no,
they went to Twitter and kind of expressed themselves.
See, this is what amazes me, right? Mm-hmm. Like first you get the whole thing where Mark Ruffalo has been fired from the whole Marvel thing because he let off a ton of spoilers or something. But yet these shareholder guys, now granted, I get it. They're the ones that kind of own, so you can't fire them. But I mean, I just think that it's funny that it doesn't seem like Disney even tried to stop them, like ask them, like, hey, maybe not.
Well, they weren't spoilers, though, necessarily.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's the difference.
That's true. I mean, what did they say? Like, they saw some of Darth Vader's helmet.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that they said, I'll try to pull it up and read it to you.
Okay, and while you're doing that, I'm going to look. This is driving me insane. I got to see what that comic series is that I bought and haven't read.
Last Shot, I think.
Shots fired.
But let's see. Scott Ladwick said we saw a blockade runner in an abandoned looking hangar, an explosion knocking stormtroopers in a starship hangar bay. Kylo Ren in the White Room looking at Vader's helmet, Finn, Rey, Poe in the Falcon cockpit. So that's cool. At least Poe actually steps foot in the Falcon, and who knows, he might even take it over. Lando briefly, Rey with Chewie's bowcaster, Finn in some abandoned looking ship interior. So, and a lot of people have just said, there are a lot of things. It looks great.
That's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, that it looks,
and that
looks
goes
fun.
along with what we talked about last week. Was the fact that a lot of people are actually talking about, when Oscar Isaac broke that news.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, okay, fans are gonna love this. This is gonna be really good. So I have to say, I think I'm really looking forward to episode 9 now more than I was.
Yeah, I think,
and that's kind of challenging because I was really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and this is different because, with episode 8, if I recall correctly, they didn't say much about what the shareholders saw.
Yeah, that's true. No, they didn't.
So the fact that the shareholders are like, yo.
Yeah, like they want to tweet about it now.
Exactly. That's kind of like, all right.
They're probably exploding. Like, no, I can't wait to tell somebody. Oh, Dark Visions. The Dark Visions series. Yeah, this looks pretty brutal, man. I'm going to have to actually read these. I also got the Poe Dameron comics. Wow, I got a lot of stuff on here I haven't looked at. The Lando comic, Double or Nothing.
It sounds very Lando-ish.
It really does. So, I mean, I have to... I actually have to update my payment purchase. Or my payment info.
Well, while Eric's getting his credit card.
Right.
I'm going to finish up my drink in the cantina.
Wow, that's it for the cantina today, huh?
Yeah, man,
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I'm kind of cut back on the drinking a bit.
All right, well, that's, I was getting worried. I wasn't going to say anything. Little Star Wars intervention over here.
Well, I'm still healing, so I can't go too crazy.
There you go. All right, so what do we got next then? Ooh, the segment you love to announce.
Yes, Duel of the Fates. All right, so this week for Duel of the Fates, is Rey related to a major character in Star Wars? Yes or no?
I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. I think that, well, you want to do it just yes or no, or you want to do percentages?
All right, you made it interesting. Let's go percentages. I'm intrigued.
All right, I'm going to go 78% that she's related to somebody.
78%?
Yep.
I'm going to go 65.
All right. Why?
I think that JJ is going to try to do some fan service and try to make her related to someone.
That's what I think too.
I think he's trying to tie everything up, so I think that might be part of his plan.
To me, it would just make the most sense. I mean, it's one of those things where, yes, it's fan service. And yes, there's going to be a lot of people that are like, oh, can't we have somebody in the Star Wars universe that isn't related? This isn't the South. And in a single swoop,
yeah, we lost our whole Southern jurisdiction.
Our whole Southern. Thank you, good night, Southern head-to-head podcast listeners. It was nice to know you. But look,
it's like that Death Star, like fire the primary laser and just.
Hey man, all I'm saying is it's a hilarious stereotype that exists. I'm just going with it. But you know what? It's still a valid point, though. Not the South thing, but the the whole idea that everybody in the Star Wars universe is related to each other. I mean, it's kind of crazy if you think about it, but at the same time, it makes sense with Rey.
You know what? At the end of this, they should just say like, "We are family."
Yeah, right. That's like part of like the John Williams version.
Yeah,
you got the London Symphony Orchestra playing it, but I don't know. I'm just one of those guys. I'm still hoping she's related to Palpatine.
I mean, that would be cool. I think it would be the greatest twist.
I don't think she's related to Luke.
No, I don't think so.
I will actually go off and say there's like a 99% chance.
I agree.
She is not related to Luke.
Yeah, I'm thinking if she's related to anyone, it's going to be either Obi-Wan or Palpatine.
Well, and the Obi-Wan is intriguing as well. That would be cool. But at the same time, it's kind of like, I don't know how the timeline, well, I get granddaughter, I guess. But, and the same thing with Palpatine, really.
Yeah.
But then again, wouldn't it be interesting? I'll actually go for a theory.
Don't say Jar Jar.
Dave Cossey, if you're listening, this one will match your Snoke theory for sure. So, what if Rey was created by Palpatine very much the same way Anakin was.
Like he tried to get it right this time?
Well, either that or, yeah. I mean, maybe it was like one of those. Because remember, he had a contingency plan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we learned this from the Aftermath series. Hey, why not? I'll throw that down as an affiliate link too. But the Aftermath trilogy was really cool, and it actually has a lot of things that I think are going to reflect in current canon and even in some of the future movies or TV shows or books, comics, whatever. But I mean, the thing is that there's a lot of stuff that was revealed in there. And one of the things was that he basically had this whole contingency plan, and he was hearing this voice or this force that he was feeling or sensing or whatever from the unknown regions. And, you know, that's what you find out Thrawn was actually helping him with a little bit. So, you know, and then Ezra went out there. I mean, that's why it's going to be really interesting to see what JJ actually does.
So you thinking that Palpatine might have like, okay, you know what? I have Vader here, but Vader's not going to last forever. Let me create another one.
Yeah, or at least, you know, like down the line or something, or maybe he started, like, you know how they had the cloning technology. You know, maybe something was started and then, you know, he didn't get a chance to basically pull the trigger. I mean, who knows? I just think that it would be interesting, or maybe if it wasn't Palpatine, maybe it was Snoke. Because, you know, Snoke was really obsessed with her, if you think about it. Like, hey, bring it. Now, of course, it could have been just because she was a pretty heavy-duty force user.
Yeah, and she resisted the fact that she resisted Kylo. You know, he was just like, okay, well, I need to find out who the heck this is.
Absolutely.
Because he knew about Luke being out there, but this girl, though, he was like, okay, well, who the heck is she?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's one of the things that, you know, is definitely... I just think that that's really worth noting.
It's Dooku's
because I don't know if we necessarily heard the last of that yet. You know,
Dooku's granddaughter.
Dooku's granddaughter. That's awesome. I'm trying to find that one post. That whole Snoke thing.
The Kasi thing?
Yeah.
I
mean, why not? It's fun, right? So, I mean, but, you know, to basically for this whole, I mean, we're pretty much in agreement, right? I mean,
yeah, I think that he's going to make her related to somebody we know. You know,
I just don't see any way around it. I mean, I think that...
I mean, you could just have her just...
but then it would have to be what was already established in 8 then.
Yeah, just be nobody. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She was just a random person who just got selected.
Yeah, but do you really believe that, though?
Well, I mean, I think... Well, once again, it's no different like we talked about before, though. It's just like people being force sensitive and just born that way. You know, and it's just like, okay, these parents or whatever were drunk... I mean... junkers or whatever.
Drunkards.
They could be drunkards too. I mean,
a little bit too many visits to the cantina, everybody.
Exactly. You know, that's why they come back. I don't want to have a little Ray running around I don't know about. So, yeah, it's one of those things where it could just be like she could be another Broom kid. And like I said, just born with the ability. And, you know, she was just chosen to be, okay, you know, the person to kind of bring that light back. And
well, you know what? And this applies. I found Dave's whole comment, right? And so this applies because so his whole thing was basically talking about Snoke. So he's like, what if Darth Plagueis at one point traveled to the unknown regions to practice his life-creating technique on either some alien race or alien organic material that would not require human gestation or birth? He would have done this before he taught it to Palpatine. The result was the creation of Snoke. So he's thinking that Snoke was created like this. Because Snoke was created in this way, he was imbued with the dark side power and the same ability to influence life. As Snoke was aging, he was creating an organic army similar to the clone army. That could almost be like a Yuuzhan Vong kind of thing. After this process was in full swing, Snoke began his plan for domination, keeping his army waiting and growing in the darkness. The call from the unknown regions that Palpatine felt was actually Snoke calling out to the darkest power he could feel at the time. When that dark presence was no longer felt, Snoke altered his original plan. Instead of unleashing his organic army creation, he ventured to known space to surveil the Force users he could feel and collect all the dark side or Sith teachings. Through this study, he decided he wanted an apprentice. He waited until the right candidate, which would be Kylo, came along to bend them to the dark side. As he was waiting, he gathered the remnants of the Empire and whoever else would join his new cause to create the First Order. Jump forward. After the battle on his ship, where Kylo cut him in half, he used his ability to regenerate and retreats to the unknown regions to collect his army to bring vengeance in Episode 9. This theory supports some rumors about a new threat that would cause Kylo and Rey to form an alliance in order to defeat. There are some other things I could tie up as well. Possible, corny. What are your thoughts and the thoughts of those who follow the page?
Sounds like Mr. Kasi has been snooping around Skywalker Ranch, or
maybe visited the Cantina a few too many times.
I
don't know, man. I honestly think
it's not a bad story. I mean, it would be. If they use that. Let's just say that was the story. It's a good story.
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility. And I think all he's doing is bringing up: is it possible or plausible?
But once again, I think with that, once again, I just think with all the stuff that you gotta try to tie up, that might be a bit much to explain all in one movie. And I see if that was what 8 was about, I could believe that.
Yeah, and that's actually, you bring up a very good point. Like, you would almost need to, once again, if that was the plan, the whole trilogy, and this goes back to what you and I have been saying on several of these episodes, is the fact that it just seems like Disney was like, choose your own adventure. It's like, make this up as you go along. It was a Han Solo way of making movies, basically.
Right.
Instead of like, okay, let's outline a story, and everybody has to work within my favorite parameters. Love my parameters.
Everything is working in normal parameters, sir.
That's right. So, I mean, wait, was that a Star Trek reference on a Star Wars show?
Hey.
Ouch.
Hey, it's a day and age where everybody's blending everything together.
Hey, that's what it could be. Snoke is actually Spock. I'm surprised we didn't even think about it before, right?
Mr. Spock.
Would have gotten away with it, too.
Right.
All right, well, I think we've convoluted our Duel of the Fates segment enough. But hey, we both agree that Rey is probably most definitely related
to somebody.
At least there's a really good chance, right? It's a high percentage.
High percentage,
okay.
Yep.
High percentage. So what we got next?
From a certain point of view.
Yay. Our feature topic. I always say that.
Yep. So our feature topic this week is the sequel trilogy. Whose story is it?
Snoke.
The Snoke.
Well, it's Snoke. He's from the South. All right, I'll stop.
But I think, so a lot of people, we talked about on the last podcast about the original trilogy.
Right, with the whole Skywalker part of it.
Right. Okay, so now with the sequel, is it Kylo's story? Is it Rey's story? Is it everyone's story? Is like whose story is it? Whose line is it anyway?
You get a story, and you
right.
Get
it's the Oprah Winfrey of stories.
Yeah, it's the Oprah Winfrey. So, well, you know what? Now, see, this one, I would be tempted to say. Actually, no, I'm going to say this. The answer is much the same way as our beloved Colonel R. Nathan R. Jessup. A Few Good Men.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Because, and this is what I started to say, but you tried to shut me up on the last podcast because you probably knew we were going to be talking about it on this one.
Yep, force choke.
Man. Sorry, guys. I'm still getting over this little sickness that I've had.
Force choke.
Right. No, but here's the thing. It's a Skywalker story. The whole saga episode, the episodic series, so the 3 trilogies basically, are about the Skywalkers, because think about it. Now, Rey, it's still up in the air, but we know Kylo's a Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
Leia's a Skywalker. Han is kind of like a Skywalker-in-law.
Well, actually, it'd be the other way around.
Luke.
Technically she's a Solo.
Well, yes. Yes, but I mean, it's like the bloodline.
The bloodline, I know.
So, I mean, it's one of those deals. And here's further proof in case anybody really needed it at that point. But the further proof is that if you actually read a lot of the novels, the canon novels that are in the periphery of all the, the main trilogies, like sequel trilogy, because that's what we're talking about, Bloodline. It's all about Leia. And it's all about how when the whole galaxy or the Republic basically found out that she was Vader's daughter,
they freaked out.
It basically turned, I guess, spoiler alert for those who haven't read it. But I mean, these are the kinds of things that unfortunately, I mean, I get it that some people really want something outside of the Skywalkers, but you have to face the facts that episodes 1 through 9 are basically about the Skywalkers. It talks about Luke's journey. I mean, we concentrate more on that in episode 8, of course. And we get a little bit more of a Kylo, like a Kylo Leia thing going as far as the Skywalkers. But then again, if you think about episode 7, though, Luke's presence is felt throughout that entire film. Because first of all, it's a search for Skywalker. Secondly, it's like it's like, oh, I thought he was a myth. He's like this legendary, he's permeating through the entire galaxy. Everybody's heard of him. Mm-hmm. So, he's a force, no pun intended, that's felt even though he's unseen until the very end of the movie. And I would assume, and we'll probably know a lot more once we get the title. And are we still all going with it's probably going to be called Balance of the Force or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm hoping for.
Me too, because number one is not cheesy.
No. And
I kind of like the sequel trilogy because they don't really have cheesy titles.
Yeah, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Balance of the Force. It would, just like A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, which, maybe that's cheesy. We're just so used to it.
Yeah.
It's like probably one of the best movies ever, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Return of the Jedi, that's cool. I don't know. I actually thought The Phantom Menace was a really good title, too. Mm-hmm. Like at first I had no idea. Like, I'm like, what? Yeah. You're bringing out the whole this is the new Star Wars movies. Like, it doesn't even make any sense until you watch the movie.
Yeah, until it makes perfect sense.
But, I mean, I don't know. I'm still going for the Skywalkers. Do you disagree?
I don't know, man. I don't. It's kind of hard. I think.
Oh, just
hey,
say it.
Hey.
It's a Skywalker.
Hey. Now, look, all I'm saying is, but I think. I mean, I can very well seeing it being the Skywalker, but I think it's just. I see it also being like Rey's thing, because
you could make that argument
because I think it's more.
It does follow her journey.
Yeah, it's following her and just like the Force awakened in her, and then she's in search for the last Jedi. So it's like, okay, so now is she's going to be the one to bring the balance back? Because that's what Snoke was talking about.
Yes, because really, if you really want to be, I guess, hyper technical about this.
See, this is why it's called from a certain point of view.
Yeah, that's why it's called a certain point of view. But if you want to be hyper technical about this, you could really say that it's both, where it's the end of the Skywalker story, but it's the beginning of whoever the heck Rey is. It's concluding.
That's hilarious.
Just this random, woman that's just kind of came out of nowhere. But I mean, the thing is that it's kind of like one story ends, another one begins, because
it's nice little compromise. I'm
well, because here's the thing, right? And you even brought this up in your opening question, is the fact that you can make the argument that it could be Kylo's story too. Mm-hmm. Skywalker blood.
Yeah.
In Leia, Leia was very prominent, especially in The Last Jedi, and from what we know, whatever episode 9 is called. which we'll know in a few days.
Yes, sir.
At least we hope.
Yeah. Better.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But yeah, I think, I don't know, I mean, because it's definitely not fitting story. It's definitely not Pose. It's, and...
Although they do have, the thing that's cool, and this is what I think is really great about Star Wars, is the fact that there are definite character journeys.
Yeah.
Because you could say that, too, about the original trilogy, right? I mean, Han Solo had a definite journey.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't just a character that was impacting the main characters. I mean, he had his own story. He had he started out, he was very selfish, and then, he went through a lot of changes, and he made some choices, and he had a redemption of sorts throughout the entire trilogy, not just at the end where he comes back to save Luke at the end of New Hope, but I mean, throughout the whole thing. So, I mean, you could actually, because there's a lot of people that, and this is the thing that I keep trying to say. It's like, yes, you can sit there, like, for instance, Han Solo is my favorite character, and you can say, well, you can argue that it's about Han Solo. I'm like, okay, he had a story in there, but it's not about him.
Yeah, it's not really chronicling or following him.
Yeah, it's not chronicling or following him. And, you could say that really about a lot of the characters in both, well, all three trilogies. It's really mainly, you have to look at the story as a whole if you really want to say who's anything, whose story is it. You could still say that the whole saga is the Skywalker story, but perhaps in the sequel trilogy, we're focusing on something else. Something else is starting. And I think that that's definitely Rey. I think you're right. I think it's BB-8's story.
Well, I mean,
he's got a little bit of an arc in there.
Well, he could be, the story could be told through his circuits or eye, that one eye he has.
You find out BB-8 is Palpatine. Like, put his essence, if you will, into BB-8. It's like, dude, Palpatine's hilarious as a droid.
Yeah, exactly. He's not that bad of a guy.
But what do you guys think? You think the sequel trilogy is a Skywalker story? You think it's Rey's story? Do you think it's, the end of one, the beginning of another? What do you guys think? Hit us up at Head to Head SW on Facebook, on Twitter, now on Instagram. Click probably the really healthy amount of affiliate links at this point I'm going to have below in our show notes and on YouTube. Oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, Eric Vancil Media. All the information will be below. All right, it's time for what has probably become known as my favorite segment.
Yes, it is.
All right, it's time for, thank you, Clear Your Mind. See, I'm so calm when I say that. All right, so this is where we take questions from you guys, even though we've actually sort of been doing that through the whole show, really. But who do we got?
This first question comes from a person with a really cool name, Duke Raines.
That is a cool name.
It's like a great stage name.
I know. Or
some sort of fighter.
G.I. Joe or something.
Yeah. Duke asked the question, because Rey has the Jedi text, will we see more Force powers?
I honestly think we're just going to see more Force powers anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it was something that you brought up in the last podcast that we did. It's like when we were talking about, do we put limitations on the Force? Should we? Or should there be parameters that have some overall definition and then you can work within those? Which still isn't really limiting the Force. It's just giving you some definition that you can use to then define what you see. But I just can't help but think that just by the very nature of the way the whole story is going. I mean, let's face it, we saw new Force powers in The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Like, very new.
Yeah, and even Force Awakens. But you know what, though? I've been thinking about
that's true. That's true.
I've been thinking about the Force is kind of like one of those things that is unique to you. And it becomes, and Eric, you're a musician, so it's almost like an instrument, that you have.
Like every player has their own style, and
you have your own style that's unique to you. But I think as you, like when you're younger, a lot of times people try to do a lot of flashy stuff because it's fun and it looks cool and you want to impress people. And you just want to show everybody what you can do. But then as you kind of get older, you really realize that, you know what, some things just doesn't call for that. Like, I can use these same basic techniques and I can get the job done and the whole thing is about conserving your energy, you know?
Well, I will say that you're definitely, and I mean, I imagine this might be where you go, because you could use this just strictly with force powers, but are you talking about like lightsaber combat versus force powers?
No, I mean, I'm just thinking
you can apply that, you know? I mean, it's like, you know, when the younger Jedis are all about, you know, lightsaber duels and
well, yeah, I mean,
flipping around and doing all this acrobatic stuff, but then as they get older...
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely applies to the same, but it's kind of like anybody, I think it's like Vader, his sheer presence alone, like he knows, okay, when I walk in a room, people already are terrified of me.
Yeah.
Like just my sheer presence of being there, I'm like 6'9" in this giant suit.
Well, that's the thing. It's kind of like...
I look freaky to people already.
Who is this guy? You know, I mean, you got to imagine, like, that's what I thought was so hilarious about Lost Stars and a couple of the other, I think The Lords of the Sith even, the 2 books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was one of the biggest things. Like, first of all, they thought this guy was a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Then they were kind of scared of him, but they didn't really respect him. They were just afraid of him because, you know, they're basically like, who is this guy?
Exactly. He's a mystery, but then the fact that, like, one of the main things he did was the whole force choke thing.
Oh, yeah.
Or
that
taking
was his thing.
You know, and force choking people I mean, it was freaky. It was kind of like you couldn't explain how it happened. Except for you knew it was the Force, but you didn't know, like, you know what I mean?
Still thinking of that whole Robot Chicken episode, though.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about, too. But I think it's one of the things that's like, it went with his personality, though.
Absolutely.
Like, Palpatine, his Force powers went with his personality. The whole lightning thing, just looking like an old, feeble man, but he has this immense power to do stuff like something like is shooting lightning out of your hand. I mean, yeah, Vader, we all knew that Vader knew how to do it, but it wasn't practical for him to do it. But it also really didn't go with his personality. Like, Vader's very forceful and imposing, and he wants you to know, like, I have no problems, like, destroying you. And choking someone to death is very violent and aggressive, if you really think about it in its context.
The other thing, too, is that even force powers that... Because, yeah, those are the ones that we associate with those guys. But you also have to look at, a lot of people used them, but they would use them in their own way. Like, for instance, 2 things I'm thinking of. Kylo would basically choke people, but he had a different way of doing it. Dooku would use Force Lightning, but he had a different way of going about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what they're doing is they're taking maybe more common powers, but they're personalizing them.
Yeah, and I think... even on the light side, though, and one of the things about Kylo that made his force power, his big one, was the whole mind probe thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's something we never really saw before.
Yep.
And that was very unique to him. And I think, like, with Rey, I think she probably developed some of her own...
Well, she seems to like to levitate rocks.
Yeah. So she might be chucking them at people or throwing things at people like Vader did. Because I remember that was creepy to me when watching Empire, when Vader just started using the Force and started throwing things at Luke. I didn't even know you could do that. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, especially, it wasn't, you know, at first it was just like, some boxes or whatever, but then it's like ripping stuff off the walls.
Yeah, pipes and everything.
Yeah, like really heavy
like
stuff,
foundations
too.
are coming off of the wall and he's just chucking at people. I mean,
well, and that's the thing that I miss, you know, because like with the game, you had like various guys like bringing down Star Destroyers with the Force.
Yeah, Force Unleashed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I think that with Rey and Kylo, I think we'll start to see more abilities from them just simply because they're younger and they're learning this stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Well, I mean, I think...
And harnessing
also,
that power.
Even from like a more out-of-universe standpoint, I just think that the nature where the story is going and the fact that they're already progressively... You know, I mean, in 7, you get a few things, and then in 8, you get a lot of stuff. And I just can't help but think this is the big grand finale.
Yeah, and also
I think we're going to see a lot of lightsaber duels too.
Yeah, I think so too, especially with the Knights of Ren.
I hope so.
Yep.
Because that's something that really has been missing.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got next?
Next, we have Tony Davis. And the question is, do you think Kylo will become Rey's love interest like Luke and Mara?
No, I don't think that's going to happen. Actually, if there is such a thing, I think it's going to be Rey and Poe. They're already setting that up. They kind of set that up. They sort of set it up actually at the end of the Force Awakens novel, but then the movies sort of pretend that didn't exist. And they took that ending scene and put it in The Last Jedi, where they were a little flirty.
I am Poe. I'm Rey.
So I mean, I think that if we do see any kind of a thing like that, I think that's what's going to happen. I don't see Rey and Kylo. It would be interesting, and it would mirror the Luke and Mara thing, because you get a light side person falling for like kind of a dark side.
Right.
Well, you get that with Quinlan Vos and Asajj Ventress too, but
right.
That whole, and I think the reason why that comes up periodically in novels and stuff is because it's so compelling and so interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like
it's a weird dynamic.
It's like that whole Batman and Catwoman thing. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's like they're on opposite sides, and it's like they love each other, but their ideals. Well, even in The Lost Stars, you get that with the two main characters. And the thing about that particular thing is neither one of them was really bad. It's both of them thought they were fighting for the right side.
Mm-hmm.
And Kylo and Rey definitely were trying to appeal to each other and get them to see, why they really felt the way that they felt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's because that's the thing that's interesting. I mean, Kylo, I think, is one of the most interesting characters in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, because he just is, you can't really put him in a box.
No, you can. And I don't actually get the sense that he's totally evil.
He's just misguided.
Completely misguided. I think misguided would be the best word. Like, Vader for a while was evil, but I think that he was just consumed.
Yeah. He didn't feel like he had no other choice.
Yeah, he had no other option, and he just, there was a lot of things going on there. Palpatine was purely evil.
Yeah, definitely.
Dooku was more of an opportunist.
Mm-hmm.
And, Maul just was sort of going with the program. You get Ventress. She basically had, her reasons. So you have a lot of people that have these things. But Kylo just seems to be almost somebody like we've never seen in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, he's very reflective of society a lot of times, where people just don't know. Like, there's truth on both sides and you don't know which one to really believe. And you're just kind of in this weird loop, and you want to subscribe to this, but then there's something that's still saying like, well, what if I'm wrong though?
Right.
I feel like he has that conflict. Like, what if I'm wrong?
Well, the other thing, and I think this might actually be the main thing that makes him so interesting, is he's so unstable.
Yeah.
We've never seen that before.
Yeah. Most Sith Lords, or not even, I can't even call him a Sith Lord, but most of the bad guys in the movie are usually clear and they know what they want.
And they're very controlled.
And they're
not, and I mean, he's just all
erratic.
over the place and so erratic.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, one of the other things, and I may have brought this up before, but I'm really looking forward to the dynamic between him and Hux in episode 9.
Yeah, I
think
Hux,
it's just going to be...
Hux cracks me up.
And I think it's going to be some good comic relief.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
At least I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I mean, I think that just about does it for this week's episode. Hopefully we'll see some of you guys. Well, we won't actually see you at Celebration, but, send us some pictures, post them at Head to Head SW on Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget to, hit up our Instagram as well. Access some of our affiliate links and help support us. Maybe eventually we'll do a Patreon, because we really want to expand this podcast, actually, and do some more cool things. But we're going to need you guys' help to do that. And, you guys get some cool stuff that you would probably buy anyway. All right. Well, that's, like I said, that's it. We will see you guys next week, where we'll do our special Celebration podcasts and hopefully our Google Hangouts.
Yes, sir.
I am Eric Vancil.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the force be with you, always.